Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today I want to welcome back to the show researcher, radio host, and filmmaker, Max Igan. Max works to expose the corruption, manipulation, and ultimate enslavement of the human race through religious indoctrination, false history, money magic, fake education, and technological advancements. How you doing today, Max?
Good, brother. Good. Thanks for asking me on. Nice to be here and chat to you again.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate that. Now, it's been a little while since you've been on. Let the audience know a little bit about your background and what it was that opened your eyes to things aren't the way they seem in our world.
Look, I've been a musician for most of my life. I've lived on the outside of society for most of my life. I woke up when I was really, really young. When I was like 4 years old, I realized something was terribly wrong. And so I kind of shifted away from things kind of there. I left school as soon as I was old enough to leave school and became a musician and kind of lived life that way, which was kind of cool because it gave me a perspective whereby I was able to sort of stay outside of the system and kind of view the system from the outside. And I just thought it was a freak show, so I just didn't want to participate. And I figured that out really, really young. So I was kind of fortunate in that respect, as I never had any moment in my life where it just suddenly my life shattered and shifted me into reality. Like a lot of people have that moment, when they suddenly wake up that, everything is not what they thought it was. I already knew that, so I'm kind of lucky in that respect. But yeah, that's basically me. That's basically the outline. And becoming an activist, I kind of became an activist out of necessity. It isn't something that you choose as a career path. You just sort of see the situation and you think, well, hang on, you've got to say something about it. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and right now there is a lot happening in our world, so much that we once, or well, not us, but many people once thought conspiracy is turning out to be true. People like us, we knew it all along. The society seems to be crumbling in so many ways. Right now, it seems we're about to lose our voices with the censorship that's occurring right now. Do you think that we will have a voice here within the next even 5 years from now with the amount of censorship that's going on the internet?
Well, not if they've got their way, we won't. We've got to find alternate platforms. But it's getting very tricky anyway with the whole social crediting system and the monitoring system. If people look at what's going on in China, really, the amount of control there is freakish. It really is. And when you look at the Internet of Things, the concept of everything having cameras in it, everything having microchips in it, the level of tracking and surveillance is going to be through the roof. And what they're doing in Western society is they're just basically squeezing us out, brushing us under the rug. And there'll be disappearances that come after that, So that's the problem that we're facing, is that people like you and I will get shut down and just sort of pushed to the side. And no one will hear when we disappear. No one will know about it. None of the people in mainstream society will know about it, mainly because we've fallen into the trap of collectivism rather than activism. We're very active online. There's a huge truth community, huge peace and freedom movement online, but it's online, and that's a virtual world. It's not in the real world. A lot of people and a lot of the connections we've made online, we haven't made these same connections in the real world. You can be an incredibly popular person and really well known online. Go for a walk in your town, nobody knows you. So they're the people that you need to reach, because those people won't care when you disappear, because they will have been programmed to believe that you're just a fringe dweller anyway. You're one of those conspiracy theorists who thinks that white people are under attack or something. You might be like Brendan Tarrant. You might go and shoot up a mosque. You might be someone that we don't want. You might be a danger to society because you don't like the government. This is the way they've been programmed to think. So this is the trap that we're falling into. A lot of the activists are falling into. So, will we have a platform? It's an interesting question. We'll only have a platform if we get some focus now. It's something I've really been attempting to convey to people lately. The so-called truth movement. It's not really a truth movement, because the truth seems to be pretty subjective depending on what people want to believe is true. And what this should be is a freedom movement. A freedom and activist movement is what it should be. And people need to start pushing it on the ground where they live. Go and start making a difference. Have community meetings. Start meeting people in your local community. Go, whatever you've got to do. Go to cafes. Have something. Go to council meetings. Something. Go to the sports club. Anything you can to meet people and talk to people. Become their friends. You know, this is something I've been saying on the air for 10, 11 years. You know, become friends with people, and then you can start discussing your political views and things. But we run down the street with a megaphone, yelling out the sky is falling, and people run the other way. You've got to become friends with people, but we're kind of the window's closing pretty quickly now. You know, I've been delivering this message for 11 years on air now, and it's got to the point now that you know, the majority of people just don't seem that they're going to wake up. They really don't. They're just going to be led into this smart grid, and unfortunately, they're going to drag the rest of us into the smart grid with them, whether we want to or not. And in that situation, it's going to be very, very difficult to have a voice. You know, we've got a window now, and we need to seize that opportunity.
Max, your volume just dropped off a good bit.
My volume just dropped?
Yeah.
How is it now?
It's better now.
Okay, very strange.
We're good now. Now, I don't know how it is for you over in Australia, but for us, you know, one of the biggest tools that the elite are using is the media, the mainstream media, just brain draining everyone. They believe everything they see coming out of the mouths of these people. What's it like for you over there? Is it the same BS over there?
Pretty well. Most people believe what the media tells them. That, you know, if it isn't on, you know, one of the mainstream broadcasters, then it can't be true. Yeah, it's the same thing. You know, I mean, I lovingly call the place Apathralia. Unfortunately, you know, lovely people, but an apathetic bunch. They just sort of letting it all happen, and very sad. I mean, the Australian people are being led like sheep to slaughter. They really are. We've been disarmed, mainly, you know, mostly disarmed. People have still got guns, but you know, you got to jump through several hoops to own one. You've got to keep the ammo separate from the gun and all sorts of. So in a real situation, you're screwed. You know, so. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, but that's the way it is, and people are just believing it. They're believing whatever the mainstream and the politicians feed them. They still buy into the whole left-right paradigm. I think there's a difference between one party and the other party. So yeah, I mean, it's not really going forward in that respect. People are still just drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I think the overall plan is coming just how they want it to. Overall, we're becoming weaker as humans through the food, water, air, the media, everything that they're feeding us. You know, all the BS all around us. We're becoming weaker as humans. I see it, and we don't want to stand up. We don't want to acknowledge the things that are happening, and we just become, you know, apathetic to all this.
Yeah, chemically induced dumbing down, chemically induced weakness, chemically induced apathy, you know, the fluoride, the toxins, the stuff they put in the food. Yeah, it's all done by design, and it definitely a weakening, you know, the loss of the alpha male. You know, people say, oh, that's good, we don't want alpha males, they're too violent. No, actually, the alpha males are the warriors, they're the defenders, they're the ones who stand up for their women. And, you know, the alpha male might be a bad thing in the context of this society that we've got, but perhaps it's the society that's the bad thing, you know, because without the alpha males, you're going to get another country full of alpha males that are going to come and wipe you out. So you need to have them there. You know, we need to have them in every tribe. Needs to have those alpha males to protect the tribe.
Your sound is going out a little bit again. Can barely hear you.
I wonder what's going on with that. Now I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's better. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I can hear you. All right, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I've had a little bit of that problem lately. I've noticed on a couple of interviews, my audio has been dropping out. I don't know quite what it's from. So, but anyway, yeah, where were we?
We were talking about the need for alpha males.
Yeah, well, you know, this is yeah. You were talking about the chemically dumbing down, the dumbing down of our people, the dumbing down of society, the loss of strength of our society. You know, I even questioned the whole the whole vegan agenda. I mean, a lot of people may not like me saying that, but I kind of question it because a lot of the vegans that I know are very, very small, very frail people, you know, and I wonder about that as well, you know, whether that's been designed to just remove the warriors from our society to make us easy to cull. You know, it just makes me wonder. We've got a lot of really lightweight guys who are really in touch with their spiritual side, but they're not in touch with their masculine side. There's no divine masculine anymore. You know, the loss of the divine feminine. We always talk about that, but there's always also the loss of the divine masculine, and you need both of them. We really need both of them. So yeah, it's a concern. It really is.
And another tool for this is the advancement of technology. I mean, it's great in so many ways if it's going to help us, if it's going to save lives, if it's going to actually produce something positive for our society. But I think the technology that they're rolling out is just the opposite. I think it's a tool for enslavement, especially some of the newer technologies like 5G. What are your thoughts on some of these new technologies that are going to be rolled out?
Look, you know, I think it's shocking. It really is. 5G is a weapons system. We don't need it. If it was all about fast downloads, they'd be able to have optic fiber or whatever. Now, 5G is about the Internet of Things. It's about chipping everything. It's about mass surveillance, and that's what it's really about. I mean, there's a lot of fear being put out there that, you know, we're all gonna die from 5G or whatever. I don't think that. I don't think it's going to be this massive cull that's just going to switch on and kill everybody. But I think it's a mass surveillance system, and it's this surveillance system, the social crediting system that's going with it, which is the end game. Like I said, if you look at what they're doing in China and you look at what they've got in place over there, it's pretty freakish stuff. You can't do anything. You can't think outside the box at all. They have sections there called vocational centres, where if you think outside the box, you get taken to a vocational centre for re-education, which is simply a concentration camp. You get trained to think the way the government wants you to think, or they don't release you. And that's the way it's going, and that's what's coming to all of our countries. And it's all being done through social crediting. And social crediting is an interesting thing. You know, with social crediting, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. It matters what your behavior scores are. And your behavior scores are judged by what you post on Facebook, all this sort of stuff. When they bring in social crediting in our countries, you know, they'll go back and look at your whole record of what your YouTube uploads have been, your Facebook posts, all this sort of stuff. And your purchasing power will be determined by your compliance with the system. You know, if you don't comply with the system, we limit your purchasing power. You know, places in India now where you need to put a double thumb scan, get 2 thumbs, put them on the pad before you can enter the shop, you know, to go and buy water, to go and buy anything. In China, you've got to scan a QR code to go into a shop. Everything you buy, you've got to buy with your cell phone. So this is the way it goes. In China, like if you jaywalk in China, the camera's got you, watched you jaywalk, you did it, that's breaking the law. They will fine you for jaywalking, and they'll deduct the money out of your account within 20 seconds of you walking across the crossing. So you don't even get a slip, you know, a form to say, oh, you've got to pay the fine. It's just deducted from your account. You know, if you don't have the money in there, you can't pay your rent that week. That's the way it was because you jaywalked too many times. So, you know, this is the way it's going. It's a really, really shocking system. And this is what's coming in all of our countries if we don't pay attention. So, you know, the technology that's been brought to us and delivered to us as our friend and our helper is actually leading us into this smart prison. It's creating a digital interface between us and reality that you need to comply with what the government says in order to cross that barrier. And if you can't cross the barrier, then you can't purchase anything because it's all going to be digital. You know, that's the problem. That's the problem with them removing cash, is when it's all digital, then your purchasing power is determined by what the government says you can or cannot buy. You know, it's pretty freaky stuff.
There's so many aspects of this technology that targets the youth of you know, not only America but the world, with social media and video games and all the new advancements that are specifically targeting youth, which seems like it is changing the way not only they think but they feel, the way they act, everything about the younger generation.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's removing them in their life skills, and it's leading them into this whole virtual world. You know, it's everything to the kids. You know, all the apps on their phones and all the Snapchat and the Instagram and all the stuff they do. This is their whole world, and that's how they get them, because you know, when that is your whole life and everything you do is determined by your online presence and your online popularity or whatever, you know, when you get the threat of being locked out of that world, that's all it takes to control you. You know, if everything is online, everything you do is online, and you're there clicking on your smartphone all day, any threat of having that taken away from you, what are you going to do? You're going to completely comply. And when all your friends are online, all your connections are online, you know, if they lock you out of your phone, you can't even make a phone call because there's no phone boxes anywhere anymore. You know, so all of this sort of stuff, you get locked out of everything, and that's what they'll do with dissenters as well. I mean, if they come along and lock you out of the system, and they're talking about removing landlines from houses even. So it's all going to be 5G. It's all going to be Wi-Fi. Everyone's going to have cell phones. You don't need landlines anymore. You've got cell phones now. So once it all becomes like that, you know, if they decide to lock you out of the system, who are you going to call? You've got no phone. What are you going to do? Your house has got a digital lock on. As soon as you leave your house, you won't be able to get back in. You can't go and buy anything anyway because it's all digital. You've been locked out of the system. You know, you can't catch a bus anywhere, can't catch a train anywhere, can't make a phone call, can't get online and let anybody know that you've been blacklisted by the government. So what do? You know, you just disappear. You got to go out and wander around the street, hope you bump into one of your friends and say, hey, I'm in trouble. And then if they talk to you, they're going to get noticed as a person of interest as well, because they'll be seen talking to someone who's on the credit blacklist. So obviously they're associating with unsavory characters. So this discourages them from wanting to contact you as well. Like in China now, if you're on the credit blacklist and I call you, the phone will give me a message telling me that I'm calling someone who's on the credit blacklist. Do I wish to proceed with the call? And then if I proceed with the call, I become a person of interest. So this discourages me from even wanting to call you. So this is what they're doing with it. So we get into a situation where people are policing themselves. And when you take that further to the extreme, and you've got microphones and clocks in your refrigerator, and your clock radio in your refrigerator, and everything, you know. So you know, you get to a point where you can't even have a conversation at home with your loved ones. You can't even have a conversation in bed quietly under the sheets because your clock radio is listening to you. You know, so you get to that point where you're not allowed to think anything that you don't. There's a restaurant in China, just a restaurant. It's like about 30 feet long. They've got 40 cameras in this restaurant, so that every single person sitting down eating a meal is on camera. Everybody watching their facial expressions, reading their lips, watching what they're saying. Every single person. They have kids at school. They've got cameras on every child in the school. This is from 5 years old. They take a snapshot of the child's face every 20 seconds to monitor the attentiveness of the child, to see whether there's someone who needs extra assistance, where they should be molded, where they should be sent. They want to see who's thinking, when they're thinking it. Every 20 seconds they're monitoring these kids. I mean, this is the situation that we're heading into. And you can't talk about it. You can't say anything about it. If you even mention it to people, they take you, they put you into a vocational center. You can't even talk about it. You know, so this is the dystopia that we're being led into. And in that future as well, I mean, what jobs will there be when it's all automated and it's all digital credits? You know, everyone will get a universal basic wage, which will be determined by credit points, you know, social points. And you can either go up or you can go down depending on how well you comply or how much you disobey. You know, if you think outside the box, well, you lose credit points, and that's the way it is. You get pushed away, and everyone will be happy that you're pushed away, because you must be a dangerous person because the government is doing the right thing, keeping everybody safe. Look how safe we all are now. That's how they feel in China. They say, oh, yes, one of the safest places on earth. No crime here. We love it, you know. That's pretty freaky stuff, and that's where we're going if people don't pay attention. Like I said, we've got a very, very short window to turn this around, and that's what the technology is doing. It's not our friend, and it's not leading us to any place good. It's leading us to a place where we simply don't have control of our lives anymore, and that's a very dangerous thing.
It's terrifying, and it seems not only that, but they are trying to basically make us less of what it is to be human. They have a transhumanism movement going. They have people that want to be anything besides what they're born as. And I think it's just such a disturbing movement. And I believe that the end game is that they actually want to make us less human and possibly part robotic. What are your thoughts on this movement?
Well, yeah, if you can consider the whole situation being run by AI, they want to merge us with that, you know. So, and they've programmed people into it as well by teaching people that, you know, it's limited. You're limited to be a human being. You need to be able to be more stronger and more this and more that and think quicker and, you know, all this stuff, you know, how limited we are by being human. It's ridiculous, you know, it's just all programming. So people are kind of embracing it. And, you know, when you get kids that grow up into this dysfunctional society, they have a hard time connecting with people around them, and, you know, they're frail and they're weak, and they, you know, they want to be like Superman, you know. And so they're embarrassed of their own personality, and they create this virtual personality for themselves, which is larger than life, and they can be everything they want to be in the virtual world. You know, and then they kind of become withdrawn in the real world, and they would love to go and live in that virtual world all the time, because there they can be anything they want to be. It's like Lawnmower Man, you know, that old movie Lawnmower Man. Here we can be anything we want. I'm God in this world, you know. That's what they want, and that's by removing them of everything that they are in the real world, it makes that virtual world look more attractive. And, you know, they don't need everybody to go into it. They don't need the entire human race to merge with AI. They just need a certain section of it to merge with AI. So they've got that human cognitive function in the machine. You know, they want it all merged with one. So you really got to wonder, you know, what's in control here? Who's in control here? What's really going on here? Because none of this seems to serve humanity very well at all.
No, and when you think about it, it actually goes back to, and I believe, even ancient times, but especially since the advent of our modern education system. You know, I believe that the whole point of our education system is to make the young people good slaves. I think that's the point that it's always been.
Well, yeah, it's an indoctrination system. It doesn't educate, it indoctrinates. It doesn't teach you how to think, it teaches you what to think. Yeah, and it awards you according to how well you regurgitate what you're told on command. It keeps you in competition with your peers. It's a terrible thing. It's the modern education system is tantamount to child abuse. You know, it's just destroying young minds and programming them to be drones. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't teach you anything about life or being human at all. You know, it trains you to be a functional cog in the big machine, which is why I left school so early. I mean, I couldn't take it. I mean, that's why it was when I was in school, and that's like 45 years ago. So I can only imagine how bad it is now. But I could see it back then, and I got kicked out of 4 schools by the time I was in my 3rd year of high school. I've been gone through 4 high schools because I was arguing with my teachers all the time. And by my 3rd year of high school, I just went, this is ridiculous. And I just walked out and left, and became a musician, never looked back, you know. But it's terrible. It's child abuse, and it's not helping anything. And this is something else that I've pointed out on the shows recently, is if you really want to make a difference in the world, start paying attention to your child's education and what they're actually teaching your kids at school, because, you know, that's where it all starts. These kids are our future, and they're being taken away from you and programmed into all this rubbish. And even all the transgenderism and sexual confusion they're pushing on children now. I mean, at least give these kids, let them become old enough to know what sexuality is before you start asking them to choose what gender they want to be, for God's sake. I mean, this is child abuse. So, you know, we've really got, you know, through the whole thing. I mean, the education system effectively steals children's childhood from them. And that's a terrible thing. You know, children should be enjoying their childhood. They should be climbing trees and playing games and all this sort of stuff. They don't need to be put through this rigorous system of indoctrination from 5 years old. You know, it's brutal what's done to these kids, and parents need to pay attention to it. Start educating their own kids, get them out of this government-controlled education system. If the government says you can't, well, dismiss the government. We all need to rally up and do this, I think. We do realise that the world is run by criminals. We don't need these people. We don't need to do what they say. They need to do what we say, which is what we employ them to do, and they're not doing that. So it's time we called it, and time we took the world back, because if we don't, we're going to lose it. And like I said, we've got a very short window to do it. So Rally up, people, grow a backbone, stand up for your children, stand up for yourself. Now's the time. Now's the time, or just forget it. I mean, but even like through all this, you know, we look at all this stuff and we see all of this bad stuff coming and all this stuff to fear. And you know, how much of it is actually about that? It's wanting to keep you in fear as well, because this is a very, very short experience, this life. And above all, what you should do through this life is enjoy life. You should enjoy it. Make sure you enjoy the day. Take stuff in. Look at the trees. Look at the birds. Just breathe the air. See the people that you love. Do things that you enjoy doing. Don't just sit there dwelling on all the bad stuff as well. I mean, look at all the stuff that I look at, and when I see the world for what it is, I find it empowering and inspiring to be able to bring this message to people and to be able to see through the haze. I don't have any fear of anything that's coming because I have no stake in the outcome of this life. This is just a fleeting experience that I'm here, just a fleeting moment that I'm here. You know, ultimately in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. So, you know, why would I have a stake in any of this? Why would I have a stake if the human race destroys itself? It's not my problem. I don't have anything to worry about there. I mean, you know, this is a beautiful experience through the whole thing. So through it all, never ever forget to enjoy the experience, to enjoy your life. Don't just, you know, take fear with you when you leave here, you know, because, you know, if this is about, you know, growing your soul, or, you know, whatever information it is that we take with us when we leave, you know, what information will a lot of the conspiracy theorists be taking with? They just sat there in fear for their whole lives. They'll be taking a big ball of fear with them when they leave. And death is inevitable. I mean, you're going to die. And that's what you came here to do. You know, nobody here gets out alive. So, you know, there's nothing to fear in any of this. You know, it's all opportunity for us. It's opportunity for us to stand up for ourselves and stand in who and what we are. That's what I see all this as being. And the fact that we're not doing that is what's causing it to get more and more negative, getting it more and more into this technological dystopia, simply because people are afraid to stand up and be what they are. And they're afraid to actually enjoy their lives anymore. You know, just enjoying your life, that would make a huge difference. But people don't do that. So that's something to think about as well.
Right, very well said. And you know, you mentioned earlier people's spiritual practices now. You know, I believe there's so much confusion, there's so much misinformation caused by basically the creation of many religions. But people are, I believe, losing spirituality now. They're not really grasping at what they truly are as humans. And I think that's also intentionally being done, along with the hiding of our real history. We probably have so much more power based on our consciousness and the natural human being powers, you know, that they want to suppress that, and possibilities of free energy in the ancient past. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, as said by Marcus Garvey, if, you know, a man with no history is like a tree with no roots. And that's what they've done to us. They've taken all of our past from us. We've got no idea where we come from and what really happened. You know, all we've got is what's written in books. And if you go out and look around the world, you find that none of these books are supported by what you can see with your own eyes when you go around the world. You know, so I'm of the firm belief that our history, most of it has been fabricated. You know, some of the stuff that we're told happened thousands of years ago wasn't. It was hundreds of years ago. Some of it probably didn't happen at all. Some of the main characters in history are probably even inventions. You know, but yeah, and there's every evidence that we had a massive culture, society that existed right across this earth as recently as a couple of hundred years ago, and that this has been wiped out and destroyed, and have been replaced by the culture that we've got now. This feudal mentality, this feudal society, this group of parasites masquerading as government across all of our countries have kind of stepped in and replaced that. How it happened, I mean, we're still trying to figure it out. It's anybody's guess how it all happened and what really went down. But there's every indication that our history is completely different to what we're told. And that this cycle we're seeing now very likely happens, you know, again and again and again. There's even discoveries that have been made in the Florida Everglades. If you look at aerial shots above some of the Everglade areas, you'll find what looks like old canal estates in there, and old telegraph poles and all sorts of stuff. So, You know, like stuff from society now that shouldn't be there. And it looks like this was a society like now that existed probably 150, 200 years ago. That shouldn't be there. You know, if the history is what we're told it is. But if history isn't what we're told it is, if this is just this cyclic thing that they build the population up and then there's a cull every couple of hundred years, I mean, is that where we're going? Who knows, you know? But there's every indication that the world was vastly different to what we're ever told it was. That there was this one culture that existed that spanned most of the world. There was a universal language that most people spoke as well, which was very likely Magyar, which is the root language of Hungarian. This seems to be the, because there's traces of this in the Australian Aboriginals and traces of this in the Incas and traces of this in South American tribes and Polynesian tribes and Melanesian tribes. They've all got links to Magyar in their language. So this would indicate that this was a worldwide culture, a worldwide language, a worldwide civilization that existed quite recently. Even some of the buildings we've got here in Australia, I mean, Australia is only 200 years old, 250 years old, the colonisation of Australia. And we've got buildings here that there's no way that the convicts could have built these buildings when they first came out. So, you know, there's every indication that our history is completely wrong. And we did have a worldwide culture that had very likely free energy, very likely harvested by buildings, copper-top buildings, churches. You know, if you look at a crystal radio set, it's constructed in the same way as a church. All the components are there in a church. A lot of these old buildings are constructed in the same manner as crystal radio sets. And crystal radio sets are devices which harvest energy from the field. So, you know, is that what these buildings were? Is that what our culture was? You know, there's so much wrong with our history. And there's so much evidence that this culture did exist. It's very, very compelling, you know. And that's a rabbit hole I've been going down lately. I was really enjoying it, actually. I'd really like to go back down and find out more about that and explore it more. But just facing what we're facing with the 5G and the rollout of this smart grid, it's kind of a clear and present danger. And we're getting to the point, like you mentioned before with censorship, that, you know, if we don't pay attention to this, well, in another year or 2 years, I won't be able to research all that because the internet's going to be so locked down, the information is going to be expunged from it. You know, we're seeing a modern day book burning on the internet is what we're seeing, with the loss of information and the censorship. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's very compelling, this ancient history stuff. But we need to deal with the situation that we're in order to find that out. Same with all the arguments people have, all the debates that people have online about all their belief systems. You know, the crux of the biscuit, the bottom line is that we're not free. You know, all of these problems and mysteries exist because we're not free. You know, and you can argue about what you believe all you like, but it won't establish freedom. You just put your loggerheads against each other while the rulers keep running off to the bank. You know, we need to establish freedom. And then when we've established freedom, all these mysteries will go away. All these questions will be answered because we'll actually have access to information and we can go and explore. We can actually be free to discuss things maybe without hacking each other down because we have a different belief system. Because that's what the truth movement has become. You know, the truth movement has been it's a whole bunch of belief systems that argue with each other. And the truth has been kind of weaponized against freedom, which is an interesting thing. And you know, the truth movement is eating itself, you know, because it's not focused on freedom, it's focused on beliefs. And beliefs are not truth. And nobody knows what the truth is. You know, I mean, everybody may claim, you know, they've got the truth, but you know, it may be a truth, but is it the truth? What is the truth? Has anybody ever known what that is, you know? So, you know, the real truth is that we're not free. So let's do that. Let's fix that. Then we might find out what the truth is, you know?
Yes, exactly. Now, I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that are going on right now and in the near future. I don't follow politics because personally I believe that every president is a puppet. They're just basically a figurehead. They hold no real power. I think Trump is no different, but a lot of people in this community or the conspiracy world think he may be some sort of savior. What are your thoughts on Trump and, you know, the current situation that we're in here?
Oh, he's the trump card, you know. He's part of the same thing. I mean, it's just a different way of playing things. You know, everyone's all excited at the moment because was it Barry Epstein's going to being arrested or whatever. And what about all the people that went there with him? Didn't I see Bill Clinton making comments on the terrible crimes of Epstein? Well, why isn't Clinton being arrested with him? I mean, you know, it's a puppet show. The whole thing's a puppet show. Hang a few of these people. It's like great move before the election, though. You know, arrest Epstein. You know, this little theatre move they've just done with North Korea. You know, threaten Iran with a war, but then look, we saved the day and it didn't quite happen. You know, it's such a puppet show. All the same theatrics. You know, he's given free run to Israel, just open slather to do whatever they want. He's giving Saudi Arabia weapons to the tune of $1.2 billion a year so they can carry out genocide against Yemen. And while they're doing all of this stuff, 5G is rolling out in the United States. They've even done legislation whereby you can't fight it state by state in the United States. The way we're doing here in Australia, we're using the criminal code of each state. We're doing what we can as an assault against you and all this sort of stuff. We're actually having a great deal of success in stopping the rollout of 5G here in Australia because of our criminal codes. But, you know, they've legislated in the United States that it's not, the states have nothing to do with it. It's all federal. So, you know, all this is going on while people think Trump is their friend. I mean, you know, theatre for the masses. It really is. You know, Trump is leading the way with the same thing. See, this whole 5G surveillance, social crediting systems coming in every country. It's rolling out simultaneously right around the world. Now, we're hearing about it here in Australia. It's happening in the United States as well. It's happening in England. It's happening in India. It's happening everywhere. They're all talking about it, you know. Even with the threat of war with Iran and all that, look at Iran. What are they doing in Iran? Oh, look, it's 5G, social crediting, same thing. It's happening everywhere, you know. So, yeah, theatre for the masses. You know, Trump is the trump card. He's kept everyone there. He's kept most of the truth movement, half of the truth movement. They all suddenly became, these people were all anti-government for years and years. As soon as Trump got there, suddenly the government became their friend. Suddenly it's okay to say, oh, look, there might be a little bit of martial law. That's going to be okay if that happens. This is all exactly the opposite of everything that we were saying before. Suddenly, but if it's Trump introducing the martial law, then it's going to be okay. It's going to be for our best interests, you know. Nah, look, it's all the same thing. It's all the same puppet show. QAnon, all this sort of stuff, you know, Q's going to come and save the day. All the Q-tubers putting out all this stuff, you know, it's theatre for the masses. It really is. You know, you can just get up there and tell the truth. I haven't seen him do that yet. You know, oh no, we gotta prepare for it. And all the Q-tubers go, oh, look, it's all secret. You've got to do it this way because otherwise, you know, the masses out there won't get it. It'll be too much of a shock for. It's so secret that it's on YouTube and it's posted on 8chan. I mean, come on, folks. How secret do you think? People that got these egos, I think, oh, I understand what's going on, but the masses out there, this is too much for them. Well, hang on, they're getting it from the same place you are. It's on YouTube, for God's sake. I mean, you know, it's not real secret. So, you know, yeah, theatre for the masses, brother. It's just the same puppet show. It's all heading for the same direction, and it always has been. Trump is not your friend. There isn't any politician that's going to fix this because they're all part of the system. Politicians are selected for us to elect. You know, they're not people who rise from the cesspool and fight for the underdog. They're people who are put there for you to vote for. And the fact that they're all billionaires should be a bit of a giveaway for everybody. You know, it's a billionaires club. So, you know, you're not part of the big club, as George Carlin used to say.
Right. Well, you know, that being said, do you have any predictions on where they're going to go with this show for 2020? Which direction they're going to go?
Social crediting. It won't matter. It doesn't matter. I think Trump will get in. I think Trump will get in. I think Trump will be re-elected. Trump will be. Well, they got him going up against Joe Biden, haven't they? I mean, Creepy Joe. No one's going to vote for Creepy Joe, are they? Creepy Joe Biden, the pedophile, he just rubs his fingers through little girls' hair and stuff. I mean, come on, this guy's pretty sus. I think they probably put him up there just so that you make sure Trump gets back in. And like with the theatre show that's going with it, he's just mended things with North Korea. He's just stopped this war with Iran. He's just arrested, you know, Epstein. You know, all this stuff. So, yeah, it's all election time stuff. And yeah, I think he'll probably get back in. I mean, you know, most presidents get 2 terms, and I think he'll get 2 terms. You know, and all the YouTubers and stuff they'll make sure he gets back in. You know, it's all the mass media, just all this stuff, and that's all theatre anyway. The mass media is only doing that because they want to promote the concept that he's the underdog fighting for the people. You know, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. You know, he probably goes out for dinner with the Clintons. He hangs out and hobnobs with all these people at the same time. So, yeah, I think you'll get back in. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But it won't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter who gets in. You could put anybody in there. You can any garden variety pickpocket and put in there. Put a piece of toast in the president's chair. It wouldn't make any difference to what we're seeing with the legislation. Just put a little piece of toast with a little tomato sauce smiley face on it, and that can be your president. It wouldn't make any difference at all. You know?
Right. Now, when it comes to some of the darker aspects of this, like the pedophilia, child sacrifice, some of the strange occult aspects, do you think that they're really Satanists, that they are basically, worshiping dark entities, doing these rituals because they believe in these dark occult practices?
Yeah, for them it's a form of bliss. You know, it's an addiction. It's you know, if you look at if you can think of even the Star Wars analogy of going to the dark side, you know, you got the Force, and then you got the dark side, and they go, oh, but you haven't felt the power of the dark. It's the bliss. It's a kind of a bliss for them, you know, and they are so locked in their own ego and their own psychopathy, and they have absolutely no regard for people at all. You know, if you're stupid enough to allow yourself to believe all this stuff, then you deserve what you get. That's their kind of attitude, and it's a bliss for them. And they know that they can get away with it, and so they do get away with it because they know they can. Because they're completely above everything. There's no way you can reach the highest people of these occults and these systems that are doing this stuff. Not unless there's a mass epiphany of people and everyone just steps away from the system. But yeah, I mean, I think, even calling them Satanists, I think that's a cop out. I think you're providing an excuse for them to do what they do. They do it simply because they're evil people, and to them it is a form of bliss, and they love it. They enjoy it, you know. So, you know, we're even oh, it's this special ritual thing. No, they just dig it. They just dig doing this shit, you know. You know, that's just what they do because that's the sort of people they are. They're full-blown psychopaths, you know, and we give them these labels to create some reason in our minds, justify with ourselves as well, make it sort of logical, trying to understand why they do this, you know. And you know, it's like there's two species here. You know, there's us and there's the psychopaths. You know, are the psychopaths even human? You'd have to ask the question, you know. But they do it because they want to do it, because they like it, and because they can, and because they've maneuvered themselves into positions of power where they control all the information everybody gets, and so they can get away with anything they want to do. Absolutely no limits, you know. And they're in this world. I mean, growing up into that type of life, into that type of family, into that type of society, you know, it's a different mindset that these people are in, and they just do it because that's what they do. So yeah, even labeling them as Satanists and stuff, like I said, I think we do that because it helps us try to understand them, you know, and we need to give them some sort of a label just for our own sanity, you know, because we can't comprehend the minds of these people. But if you can understand it as a form of bliss for them, you know, that moment when you're in that really moment of absolute pleasure, you know, it's like that, only it's the dark side for them. So that's the way I've spent years kind of thinking about this and trying to figure out why these people and what it is, and you know. But if you come into this world, I mean, I think there's certain groups of people that do still have the knowledge and still have the right books and have the right information. I think that people are probably taught this when they come through, and they learn what the karmic rules are, and they learn what they can do and what they can't. And as I said, you know, life. One thing about life is it's about experience. It's about pleasure. It's about physical sensation. You don't get that when you leave here. That's why you should enjoy your life, because, you know, taste and touch and smell and sight and sound, having sex, all these things, this is great stuff. You don't get to do that when you leave here. You're heading for this spiritual stuff. Oh, I want to be this spiritual Ariel. Well, you're going to be there, and you might be there for 1,000 years, and it's going to get pretty boring. You know, you came here for this fleeting moment to experience physicality. And so they come here and they've got that knowledge, and so they want to experience physicality in every single aspect of it. You know, ripping people apart. They want to know, they want to rip people apart just to know what it feels like to do that. You know what I mean? And they've got this karmic thing going on. They've got knowledge, you know, they just, I don't know, maybe it's a soul farm, and they know that we're recycled and recycled and recycled. I mean, who knows? It's anybody's guess. You could speculate on this all you want. But like I said, I think we create excuses for these people. We call them Satanists, we call them this, we call them that, when really they're just psychopaths who do what they do because they enjoy doing it.
Now, when you say the top of the pyramid, I wonder if it's even a real pyramid structure, or if it's different factions just out for themselves for control on this planet. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that too. You know, there's certain people that are vying for, yeah, there's certain competition within the top of the pyramid, if you want to put it that way, who all think that they're going to be the one who gets to the top of the pile in the end. But really, it's just AI running the whole thing. You know, I did a show a couple of years ago called Giving Life to Lucifer, and what happens when you begin this pursuit of knowledge, and how the pursuit of knowledge itself becomes its own entity. And that's what kind of infects our minds. And we end up leading ourselves to our own demise. We don't even know what we're doing. We're just going for ourselves for self-gratification. And we're building this stuff around us. And it's the mentality itself which is doing it. You know, whether there is one evil cabal, one evil family sitting there at the top pulling all the strings, well, possibly, we don't know. But it's the mentality itself that does it. You know, it's our need for to climb to the top of the pile. We've got no idea what life is about. We think it's all about this stuff. We've got to collect all this junk, and we've got to do all these things, and at the expense of everybody else, to get to this place that doesn't exist. And it's that search for that place, you know, that you know, I've done it, I've got to the top of the pile, here I am. Well, hang on, there's nothing here. You know, it's that search that does it. It's that mentality we've got, which is its own this is what is destroying us. You know, the natural progression towards this need for knowledge that we simply don't need. We don't need to know all this stuff that we think we need to know. You don't need to pull a rock apart to find out what it's made for. Just enjoy the rock. Why do you need to pull it apart and know what its component parts are? How does that affect your life? How does it affect your spiritual path through this realm? How does it affect your interaction with other people? Knowing all this stuff that you don't need to know. Why do you need to know it? All you need to know is know how to eat, how to live, how to breathe, how to grow your food, how to collect your food, how to hunt, how to build a shelter, you know, how to live your life, how to be a good person. You don't need to know all this other stuff. You don't need to know what the mountains and trees are made of. You don't need to know how to build these things that you don't need. Yeah, we don't need to do half of the stuff that we do. It's that mentality itself, which I think is the enemy, is the system. That's how, like, when it leads into technology and where we're going now, it isn't that there's these evil tech companies that want this evil control. The technology, it's a natural progression. The technology wants to become more efficient itself. And when it becomes more efficient, then suddenly we get discarded. We get pushed and shunted aside. So, you know, it's the mentality itself really which is the problem. And that's why I've often said to people, you know, we could change the world in a day if people simply change their perspective. You know, it's really that simple. That's how we could do it. We don't realize that we're caught in this fictional realm, this mindset, this attitude, which is simply not real. You know.
Do you see them pulling a war card in the near future, or are we possibly done with, excuse me, conventional war, and it's more of silent wars like weather warfare and this new censorship and 5G? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's probably more like what it's going to be like. I mean, they don't really need war too much anymore. I mean, war doesn't serve any real purpose. The threat of war serves a huge purpose. It's like nuclear war. There'd never be a nuclear war. Now, nuclear war serves no purpose at all. Now, even if nuclear weapons are real or not, I mean, it serves no purpose. The threat of nuclear war, however, is a great tool. That's what they use all the time. So, I mean, will there be other wars? I think there'll probably be a time when they go and take out Iran. If they can't get Iran to comply, but see, they could do all that with 5G and social crediting as well. So you don't know how it could go, but Israel really would like Iran gone. So that's why. But you've got to question whether Israel's even going to remain, because they don't even care about Israel. The people who run Israel don't care about Israel. It's just there to create the instability in the Middle East. But you got to understand there's different game plans that they try to see which ones are going to work. And if it all leads towards this 5G social crediting thing, and this is going to come a blanket across all countries, they're not going to need another war. They could always put it in the newspapers where there's a threat of one, because that's always good for votes and good for political tension and good to control the people. If the Americans think that Iran's going to come and bomb them, that's a good thing. Iran won't ever come and bomb them, but hey, we can tell them that they are. So these are the sorts of stuff that they use, So, the threat of war has always been a very effective political tool, but we're getting to a point now where we don't need to fight conventional wars anymore. Like you say, we could do weather wars, earthquake machines. The war they're raging against Iran now, the sanctions against the country, this is war. This is an act of war. You're starving half of the population to death. You're starving all the children. So many people are dying because of sanctions, and you're saying this isn't an act of violence. Yes, it is. It's an act of violence. So, they can do it through those sorts of wars now. They don't really need to go and drop bombs. I mean, they like to drop bombs because they like explosions. It looks good for the camera. It's good on TV. So, they like that sort of stuff as well. But people aren't really tolerating that as much. They much prefer to see someone wiped out through electromagnetic means or economic means, because then it appears to be their fault that they just didn't do things properly. So they don't really want to see their government going and dropping bombs on children anymore. It's not really good. Not a good look in the 2000s, So, moving towards more unconventional methods.
Now, there have been, I guess you could say, interesting things happening when it comes to, I guess you could say, disclosure, extraterrestrial disclosure. There have been these supposed leaks. I'd like to know your thoughts on this, if it's just a setup for something more malevolent, because I definitely don't trust the sources this information is coming from, or the reasoning. I mean, why all of a sudden now has extraterrestrials, aliens, UFOs become so popular in the mainstream media?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes through periods like this. It did the same thing back in the 70s. They've been telling us disclosures coming since 1976. They bring it out and they get people to run down that rabbit hole. And it's a new thing to keep people on the edge of their seat waiting for something that's imminent about to happen, It's the same thing. It's like the destruction of the world, climate change and all this sort of stuff. Like back in the 1960s, they told us the Ice Age was coming. Back in the 1970s, it was acid rain was going to destroy the world in 12 years. There's a hole in the ozone layer, I think, in the 1980s. And then we had peak oil. All the oil's going to run out. We're all going to die because we're not going to have fuel to be able to grow crops. And then it became global warming. And suddenly in 1999, we told that we're all going to be, or in 1986, we were told we're all going to be drowned by the year 2000 because the oceans are rising. And so it's the same thing. Every few years, there's a new disaster, a new thing to come along. So it's the same thing with the aliens. Every 10 or 20 years, they'll come and tell you disclosure's imminent. We had in 1999, or in 2011, David Wilcox telling us that Obama had booked airtime. There was going to be disclosure. He'd already booked the airtime. Come January, there's going to be a big announcement, going to be an hour-long presentation on TV for UFO disclosure. And that quietly got slipped under the rug. Here we are, another 10 years later. Now, UFO disclosure coming again. It's the same thing. It happens in cycles all the time. They've been saying it since 1976. We're still waiting. Now, how long does it take to open the book and say, hey, folks, we're actually doing it? How long does it take to actually go and arrest Hillary Clinton, like with the Q-tubers and all that? How long does it take to actually go and do these things? People wait for years and years and years, and they still tell you that it's imminent, and they're going to do it, and they still believe it. It's quite remarkable, really. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I am somewhat hopeful because I do see somewhat of an awakening in people. I do see a lot more people questioning what's happening, questioning politics, questioning the food, water, noticing things that they're spraying in the air. Do you think that we have a chance as humans to actually come back from this within the amount of time that, you know, can actually make a difference and turn things around?
Look, yeah, I do. I mean, I'm fast losing hope that we will, but I do. We can, and we can. Like I said, we could change the world in a day. I mean, if I didn't know that, then I wouldn't still do what I do. You know, if I thought it was all hopeless and all completely lost, I couldn't continue to still do the shows. You know, so I think we can turn it around, and I think that we may even get right up to the moment that our backs are right against the wall, and then people will eventually stand up. They will. They will stand up for themselves. I have an enormous amount of faith in the human race. So yeah, I think we will. We can bounce back from this, no matter how bleak it gets. We can bounce back.
Very good. And Max, I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. That was awesome. We're going to have to definitely have you back on in the future.
My pleasure, brother. Happy to come on and have a chat anytime.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day.